Chapter 21. Candles. When I wake up, rainbow-colored helium balloons are bouncing on my ceiling, and I'm not 11 anymore. I haven't grown overnight or changed in any physical way, but I feel different. Everything feels more. My mom walks in carrying the phone. "It's your dad," she says. She hands it to me. "Happy birthday from Houston," he calls over the line. How does it feel to be the wisest old age of 12? Great, I say. You know what Shakespeare said about growing old? What? When the age is in, the wit is out. Oh, I say. Huh? It's from Mucho Ado about nothing, he informs me. He says that when you get old, you lose your brains. That's good. Good? Sure, at least I'll have an excuse when I don't get a perfect report card. He laughs. When I open my locker door, there's a birthday card waiting for me from Brianna. I can't help but remember last year when she decorated my desk with crepe paper and flowers and brought in a whole box of cupcakes. The card seems a little sad. But the day gets better. At lunch, Ranj hands me a present with a pink bow. "Hey," he says, "happy birthday." "How'd you know?" My grandfather taps his chest. I told him, of course. I open the box and grin. It's a burrito from my favorite Mexican place. "This is great, thanks," I tell him. He blushes a little and looks away. "When I was a kid, there wasn't this much hoopla around birthdays," my grandfather says. "You all want a ticker tape parade? Everything's too much with this generation." You're part of this generation now," Raj says. I've noticed that grown-ups don't seem to get as excited about birthdays as kids do. My mom jokes that she stopped counting them, which makes me think. "How many candles will you have on your cake this year?" I ask my grandfather. "What?" he asks. "For your birthday, because of the T. Melvinus," I explain. "Will you have 77 candles or like 14? My grandfather blinks and then says, "I don't believe in birthdays." My mom is a little surprised when I request French food for my birthday dinner. "French, not Mexican," she says. "French," I say. The French restaurant where we go to dinner is small and intimate. The napkins are thick and ironed, and the waiter sweeps the crumbs off the table with a fancy little knife. I order my meal, and it's delicious. The waiter gives us bowls of sorbet between each course, but the best part of the meal is the end. Instead of a dessert cart, the waiter wheels out a cheese cart. There must be 20 kinds of cheese to choose from. When my mom breaks out the presents from her and my dad. A gift card to a place at the mall that sells hair accessories, a puzzle with a picture of a unicorn, and a cell phone. There's even a cute case, pink with glitter. "Finally," I says. "Thank you." My mom smiles. "Use it wisely. Don't go over your minutes." My grandfather hands me his present. It's a big box wrapped in shiny silver paper with white bow. I tear the paper away and gasp in delight. "A microscope?" "It's a good one. Practically professional," my grandfather says. I stare at the box. I feel like I've been officially ushered into a secret society of scientists. My grandfather points out the features. Binocular eyepiece, halogen light, 4 objective lenses. Of course, I'll teach you how to use it. "Thank you, I tell him. This is the best present ever." "Well, good. I'm glad you like it." My mom watches this byplay with a funny look. I thought the cell phone was the best present ever. After dinner, the waiter brings out a cake. There are 13 candles, 12 pink, plus one rainbow candle to grow on. The whole restaurant sings happy birthday to me. I lean in and blow out the candles. One refuses to go out and it takes 3 times before it's finally out. That night, I fall asleep dreaming of candles. Hundreds of candles. They burn on, bright and defiant, never going out. Chapter 22. Growing Pains. My grandfather walks into the kitchen a few mornings later, carrying a bottle of pain pills. He pours a glass of water and pops a handful of pills. "Are you okay?" I ask him. He's pale, with dark circles under his eyes. "I'm having growing pains," he grits out, pointing at his legs. "The T. Melvinus must be regenerating my bones. Does it hurt a lot?" Let's just say I know what it feels like to be tortured. My dad's back in town for the weekend. He appears at our front door after lunch wearing worn-out jeans and a black t-shirt, carrying his toolbox. "Dad!" I shout, and I fling myself at him. "Reporting for duty," he tells me. "I hear there's a toilet that needs fixing." My father is handsome. I don't say that just because I'm his daughter. He's the kind of man who women stop and stare at when he walks into a room. He's got thick, curly black hair and dark brown eyes. He's usually cast as the rake or the hero in a play. "I miss working with my assistant," he winks at me. "I brought your hammer." To pay the bills when I was little, my dad did carpentry work and odd jobs, hauling me around in his baby carrier. When I started teething, I chewed the wooden handle of one of his hammers. It still has bite marks on it. "Where's your mom?" "At the high school. They're having trouble with the light board," I tell him. "She said you're cooking dinner." He looks around. "You're here by yourself?" "No, Melvin's in the den." Ah, right. She mentioned something about some long-lost cousin crashing here. Well, let's get that toilet out of the way. We settle down in the bathroom and my father stakes the toilet and then takes the lid off and tinkers around with the insides. That should do it. You want to do the honors? I flush and the water goes down. You should have been a plumber, I say. He gives me a smile. I would have made a whole lot more money, that's for sure. My grandfather walks into the bathroom, holding the catcher in the rye. He freezes when he sees my father. You must be Melvin, my father says. I'm Ellie. Dad, Jeremy. He holds out his hand. My grandfather doesn't reciprocate. Did you wash his hand? Toilet water is clean, my father says. Then drink it. We stand there for a moment. Then my grandfather holds out his hand. You gonna stand around yapping all day? I've got homework to finish. My father makes risotto for dinner. We sit outside on our tiny patio, and the adults drink red wine, and my grandfather and I have a soda. Between the crisp air, the good food, and my parents trading gossip about theater friends, it feels like I'm watching a favorite TV show. Except this time, my grandfather has a guest role as the silent, moody teenager, or maybe he isn't even acting. My father and grandfather have never exactly been buddies. When my parents first got married, my grandfather said some things that put my father that involved the words punk, my daughter, and knocked up. Needless to say, there is no way we can let my dad in on the little secret about Melvin. My grandfather turns to my dad. So, I hear you're an actor. How's that working out for you? Pretty good, actually, he says. The tour of my production has been extended for another year. That's wonderful, Jeremy, my mother says. Congrats, Dad. My grandfather doesn't look impressed. He says, lots of money performing in Peoria? I'm in the union, my dad says. I've got great benefits package. My grandfather grunts. My dad smiles at him. You remind me of someone, he says. Really? Who? Just an old guy, one of those grumpy types. Actually, you're distantly related to him. Guess Melvin is a family name. My mom and I share a worried look. Then, without a word, my grandfather gets up and goes inside. My father turns to my mother. Interesting kid, he says. Teenagers, my mom says. All clear, I offer, and start picking up dishes. My parents beam at me. I stack the plates, and what I see when I go into the kitchen almost makes me drop them. My grandfather is pouring red wine into a plastic cup. What are you doing? What's it look like I'm doing? But you can't. Why not? It's not like I'm underage, and I need something to dull the pain. My legs are killing me. The wine loosens my grandfather's tongue, and he starts to make even more snarky remarks at the dinner table. To be or not to be 13, that's the question, he says. My parents are deep in conversation and don't even seem to notice. I'm going to the bathroom, my grandfather announces. My mother shakes her head and turns to my dad. Were you like this as a teenage boy? I'm not sure. Mostly I remember being embarrassed by my parents all the time. She changes the subject. So spill. How's Francois? She makes air quotes around her hands when she says his name. Francois, I know, is the director of Les Miserables. You mean besides having a French name, but actually being from Long Island? I knew it was a fake accent, my mom says. He has a good speech coach somewhere along the line. The toilet flushes. My father adds, also his ego is bigger than a blimp. The toilet flushes again. Did you fix it? My mom asked. I fixed it, my dad says. I think of all the pain pills Melvin took earlier. Worry spikes through me. Maybe we should check on him, I suggest. We find my grandfather hunched over the toilet, throwing up. Oh no! Do you have food poisoning, my mom says? My father sniffs and looks furious. Since when does food poisoning smell like red wine?